Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Mokanaman at YouTube with another modelling video. Now we're going to be doing another question and answer session. Last week I asked for your questions. We're doing this a lot more often. I'd like to go for once a month, and everyone knowing the rules, I'll just smash straight into it. Now back to Richard, as he states, back by popular demand. Can I run an idea past you? What are your thoughts on painting foil stickers? There is no detail to lose. I'm simply interested in knowing where or not the paint will stick. Obviously, I've used primer. You can paint on foil stickers if you're using it as like a slight raised detail. So if they're applied to the model kit, you prime and then paint over. That's perfectly fine. It'll actually give you slightly raised elevation, which would be very interesting. Primer will etch onto it, and you can obviously put any sort of paint on top of that. Another interesting fact is, if you place the foil sticker and you want to paint a tiny bit of detail, like SD Gundam eyes, you want a small glint or something, a dot of white paint, that can also happen and will stick to the foil as long as you top coat it a few times to protect it. Special coated pieces, those really candied metallic ones, can also be painted on as long as you follow the same rule as I did on a really old SD kit many years ago. Medion face. What's best for hand painting enamel or acrylic based paints? Now, I've done a few of these tutorials. My personal opinion, and what's an old doctrine to scale modelling. Generally, enamels are a lot easier, even though they're a little more toxic. They are thin with any sorts of turpentine based solvent, so straight terps, mineral spirits, lighter fluid. It'll thin very easily. It'll take to the plastic and stick on the plastic a lot well. It does look all marbly and crappy for the first few coats. Its only disadvantage is a very slow drying time, though you're going to get a more vibrant finish, better concentration of pigments, and it's more scratch resistance. Though all in all, as long as you clean your brush with turpentine and you thin the paints down quite a bit, lay on multiple coats, letting each coat dry, you'll be rewarded with a fantastic finish, free of streaks. The best thing about enamels is, as it slowly dries, any streaks or build up of paint will level and thin itself out throughout the surface. Next question. What's by Richard again? What colour do you recommend to pre-shade white? I think black will be a bit harsh, but I'm worried about getting the shade of grey just right. Should it be darker or lighter? Thanks for the help. Pre-shading is 90% of the done with black lines, and you fill in the spaces in between the black lines with the white paint and shade on top until you get that just perfect balance of the gradient line. The more white paint applied, the less harsh it will be. But I have seen other colours used. Some Gundam modelers have used a very dark blue or a very dark grey for a slightly different under effect. That's quite appropriate, but don't worry about it being too harsh, as when you pull the model back and you lightly dust on the white paint, you can perfectly control how harsh or faint or delicate it can be. In that, just have a bit of a practice. Aaron Wong asks, where would I get a good budget airbrush and compressor in Melbourne, Australia, where I live and integrate with the local community? To make it quick, not to bore my international viewers, the Victorian Hobby Centre in the CBD does a very good deal on a compressor and airbrush for many years. Though if you're willing to wait for Model Expo or any other event, Runway 13, they're either from Sydney or Brisbane, so I'm not too sure. They do amazing deals on high quality airbrushes. Unfortunately, Vic Hobby's been selling Chinese brand and not Sparmax anymore. Your best bet waiting for Expo, go to Runway 13, and I think for under $200 you can get a really nice high quality, will last you many years combination. Runway 13 is also fantastic as they'll do aftermarket service. They'll post you out parts such as nozzles and needles. And if you do go to an event, besides the added bonus of not paying postage, the gentleman will actually put an airbrush in your hand and teach you some basic techniques. He's also free to email and help you out after services. So that's my biggest recommendation. If you want to walk into a shop right this very second and buy something, the Victorian Hobby Centre is your second best bet. Though once you buy a compressor, you can always buy a high quality airbrush later on down the road. AH559881. Hey man, I'm looking at making a small mini diorama. I want to do a sand weathering effect. I've never done any weathering effects and wondering what would you suggest trying for a beginner. My idea is a Zaku at the moment, or shield in the sand. I assume this is a painting pigment weathering effect on the model itself and not the actual base. For cheapest quick effect, dry brushing with enamels. That's dipping the brush in the paints and rubbing it off multiple times on a towel and just ever so gently and lightly brushing it across the surface. Unfortunately, there is chances of overly doing it and it not looking too effective. If you want the best effect, besides applying a wash over your kit and a little inking, fuck. Sorry, my computer just turned off. Besides adding ink and top coating it, you can use pigments, Humbrol, MIG Production, the Tamiya weathering sets that will give you a more delicate, professional and a more effective look without trying as hard or being as skilled. But for the cheapest and quickest effect is delicate dry brushing, and less is more. And we're back with my laptop working. Johnny B asks, thanks for the opportunity to ask questions again, Alan. Much appreciated. Thank you very much, Johnny. I was wondering where you get trees, foliage and buildings for your 1:144 scale dioramas. I've been using model railway supply stuff, but they always seem a little out of scale. Also, what do you use for water on dioramas? Thanks for any help you can give me. I haven't done a 1:144 diorama for a little while, or at least a traditional one. The last one I did was 1:100, and there's a few interesting items for that for your information by wargaming people. World War II, Vietnam War era buildings, tanks, debris, stuff like that you can buy. But the majority of the building stuff, the runway, the trees, was scratch built using a mixture of milli-putt and wire armature. For 1:144 there really isn't anything. The only thing in railway that's suitable is some silos and tanks and whatnot. But looking at some wargaming magazines and whatnot, it would be most rewarding and effective is to delve into styrene card or pla plate building, scratch building. I did do that hanger for that diorama, and that was quite pleasing, even though it looks like a gigantic corrugated tin shed. For water effects, I haven't really delved much into that. I've done very still surfaces by applying quite a few coats of PVA glue mixed with Tamiya clear blue. technique I was taught by some Warhammer Games Workshop people. PVA glue can be watered down with water and paint mixed into it to create some interesting bonding agents for dioramas. Then airbrushed with more clear blue on top of that. But there is quite a few products out there by the railway people where you can get cascading waterfalls and water and all sorts of stuff, which is either clear resin mixed and then dyes added to it, or blue airbrushed on top of that. Very toxic process. Wear a respirator. Or some of these unusual heat beads where you melt them down, or they get soft, and you pour them in a reservoir, being a dam or a river or whatever water effect. There are proper water products out there on the market with suitable tutorials by model railway people. They're just very tricky to pull off in a realistic manner, and sprawling and building a diorama around that. That's why there are few people that pull it off quite effectively, especially dioramas. Normally high esteemed modelers, and are rewarded as so in competitions. But with the right research, practice and trying, I am very confident you'll be able to pull it off. The railway people would be the first port of call to look at in the manner of your tutorials and products. Your buildings, investigate scratch building, look at some old White Dwarf magazines, Warhammer people. They're the people to hit up for that sort of stuff. Once you learn how to build a basic box out of styrene, then you can get a little complicated in cutting out holes for windows and balconies and all sorts of interesting goodies. We've got James P. I am pretty new to model building. Just got started the past couple of months, and the main problem I'm having is the nub marks. I cut the nubs off, but a lot of the time there is still a mark from where the nub used to be. I cut the piece off the runner and trim it down with a hobby knife. Should I use different grits of sandpaper instead? Well, I don't want to paint yet, as I'm still new to painting the model. Won't work for me. Also, for top coating, should I panel line and then top coat? What are good brands, types of top coat can I use in a spray can? James, to answer your question about the nub marks, once you've neatly removed it and you still got that white stressed plastic effect, different grades of sandpaper is the answer. Once you've used something quite harsh, just keep going down to automotive grade sandpapers, 600 grit, 800 grit, 1000 grit. Wet and dry, wet it and continually buff it, and you'll eventually get the colour of the plastic to return. When you're sanding it down, make sure it's ever so slightly raised where the stress bit is, and you're actually cutting and polishing into the plastic where it's solid colour, and not where it's being cut off or stressed with a knife. So 1/2 millimetre sticking out the nub, and keep sanding until it's flattish. Then polish with fine wet sandpaper. That will give you a no nub effect. That's what some of these techniques are used in snap kit displays in magazines, hobby shops in Asia and whatnot. With panel lining, you're a snapper and you're panel lining bare plastic. This comes to your advantage is if you make a mistake or something, it'll be a lot easier to clean up than on a painted surface. It's already a fairly glossy surface, so just do your panel lining inking. Once dried, then apply your top coat. Yet if you're painting, so if you're doing this on a painted surface, put a coat of clear gloss, do your panel lining, inking, whatever, and then seal it with another coat. Top brands of spray can brands to use, lesser ones can yellow and be problematic. The two best brands is Testors followed by Tamiya. Testors does the best matte spray, the absolute best out of all the other hobby brands. Tamiya probably does the best gloss, though whatever you come across. If you don't have the Testers brand in your hobby shop, Tamiya Matte and Gloss would be the second to go to, followed by Mr. Hobby if you're quite desperate. Next question, Big Mix Model UK. What was the first kit I ever did, and do I still have it? I do still have this kit. Unfortunately, it's locked up in a box with some school stuff. I've been modelling for many years, and it's out in the shed. I don't wish to dig it up. I will tell the story about it, as interesting as it is. I bought another one as I wish to seek vengeance, and it is the Lockerhead T33A Shooting Star by Hasegawa, and it's in Japanese colours, interesting white silver with some decals, and the drop tanks on the side with the red. It took me a while to track down this kit. When I went into a little bit of a 72nd aircraft phase, built about 3 of them, and then stopped it for some reason. I remember going through the attic and finding a couple of my father's model kits when I was very young. I've come back from the shopping centre, and they had one of these workshops where you were given a small casting of a plaster figurine, and they'll give you some water-based acrylics, and you paint them up. My mother, who's very artistic and supportive of me and my brother pursuing arts and whatnot, bought us little painting art sets and texture sets throughout our childhood, would take us to those places every time there was an opportunity. So when we bought one of these sets, they actually sent us with the paints home. I had a couple of jars of red, blue, yellow paint after painting a seal of some sort, and whiteout, PVA glue, glue stick, that sort of stuff. Going through the attic, I found a few of my father's very old model kits. He was never good at it. He bought a few just like every other baby boomer at the time of they were children, and he had quite a few box kits he never built. So I had to go at ripping him straight off the runners, not dealing with the smaller details, sticking them together with PVA glue, and painting the whole kit with whiteouts. Lots and lots of streaks. Using a big, thick, fat $2 shop brush, I dabbed on the Japanese logo circles and painted the fuel tanks. By modelling standard, looking in retrospect, it must have looked absolutely awful, but I had no help, guidance, whatever. I was under 10 years old, and I was proud as punch of it. If I was to look at it today, I would not freak out, because I knew at the time, with no guidance, it was the best I could do. I loved it when I finished it, and I would still probably treasure it if I were to find it again, and would definitely add it to my collection. So that's a little bit of a story. Well over 10 years ago, I met up with a friend from primary school. He bumped into a hobby shop and started buying models, and he had the proper paints, the proper glues. I went over and he actually taught me the absolute basics of using plastic cement and hand painting Humbrol enamels, which I used to share his stock. Eventually started buying my own stuff, and over time we just grew together, grew apart, and I've actually met him very recently 2 years ago at the Model Expo, so we're doing models again together. That was way long-winded. Robot Adventures, that is, I'm making a video. I've been working a lot in Blender and playing with 3D modeling for when I get a printer. Need to keep my skills up. Riven, good for you, mate. Box Buyer 2008. Do you know Bennymacattack? And have you guys ever had a beer together? I've met a lot of Australian YouTuber modelers and known non-YouTube modelers. I've had beers with some of them, others not. I don't know who Bennymacattack was. I had a look at his videos. He is very cool. I'm going to subscribe and watch more of his content when I get some time. I recommend you guys check it out if you're into cars and military stuff. If I ever do cross paths with him in a competition or something, I will definitely extend the invitation of a drink. But yep, through you I've discovered Bennymacattack, and he seems to be very entertaining. Rob Basic Modelling. How do I stop myself from starting endless kits but hardly finishing any? That is a good question. I don't know if you can see behind me, but from a level of a chair to this point, I have about 10 unfinished kits, and there's another 6 in the attic that 10 in the attic that I've permanently shelved for one reason or another. But I make enough models, or finish enough models for purposes of the finishing dates of competitions, group builds, and maintaining the flow of finished work on this channel. But some kits are just, you lose inspiration, or they're very tricky, difficult. There's a part where you need to get a part deck or something casted, and it just gets shelved. So I suffer the same problem as every other modeler, but I pump out enough stuff just through discipline of doing competitions and group builds, and that's probably what every other modeler out there does that. Robot Adventures returns. Okay, serious question. Do you think it would be easy to scratch build a small curved part or to 3D print it? This is a fantastic question. In my honest and humble opinion, 3D printing is the way of the future for aftermarket parts, garage projects, diorama pieces. A lot of 3D printers will never replace mainstream modelling. It will not pump out styrene kits of the same quality or numbers cheaply, but for sitting in someone's studio and how easy things like 3D Blender are to operate, people will be able to make add-ons to their model kits, diorama pieces, building pieces. If you want to make a 1:144 diorama, you'll be able to download and print, or actually draw and print your own buildings, weapons, whatever. But I'm still learning 3D software myself. I am researching printers, engineering standards of accuracy, how printers can go out of line, quality ones, cheap ones. I'm weighing everything up because I would like to jump into it as it's starting to become a big thing and booming in scale modeling. They are still a bit too expensive at $2,000 for a desktop setup. There's still a lot of companies out there competing. There isn't a standard couple of major ones. I'm not quite happy with the top of the market MakerBot yet. I'm going to continually watching the market. I'm going to continually learning how to 3D print and draw files on CAD and 3D Blender and whatever. But if you wish to dwell in it now, Ghost of Xeon did a good experiment. Draw something, get some files, and send it to a 3D printing company. They've got these gigantic printers that are worth millions of dollars, and they'll print something out really cheaply in ABS or PLA and mail it to you at a very affordable price. A lot of these mobs are overseas, and by the time the printers are affordable enough that they're a few $100s, you can purchase that, and you already have all the necessary skills to go running. Now, in the way of drawing a small curved part, I don't know how easy that is and how it will respond to fitting on your part or producing it. But I'll show you some stuff that I have scratch built by hand. And with practice, it's not too hard. This is a Normand helmet that's going to be fitting on top of a Gundam. It's hollow. So this was just a process of doing something really rough by putting lubricant on the head, slapping some putty on it, and then dremeling it to a basic shape, and a constant application of putty and sanding until I got a shape I liked. And this is a very complicated one. I got a round piece, cut it, and sculpted a brim on it. Once I polished it and applied many layers of putty and was very happy with its shape, I made the dome as a separate piece by applying lubricant on the shield and just splatting some 2-part putty, removing it, cleaning it, cutting it, and just constantly adding putty and sanding back until the shape was satisfactory. That takes a bit of practice. I've sculpted a lot of round pieces over the years, and I think I'm okay. I'm not as good as many other people out there, but if you constantly practice, because I don't do this too often, you could probably get very good and better than me at a short period of time. But in the future, 3D printing probably will be easier than hand making it. It just all depends on the piece. Alright, that concludes the questions on the Ask area. There's a couple of questions I'm going to answer that I thought was very interesting on other videos in the past month. Samuel asked on my Type 95 metal build, is superglue the best way or the only way to assemble these metal kits? They're pewter lead models. My answer being superglue is what I personally like to use. 2-part epoxy and other strength contact glues also work quite efficiently. The hint of working with metal or resin models, the bigger pieces you pin, smaller pieces you don't have to. It's just making sure the surface is clean of any mold release agents, clean with detergent and water. And our last question for the night, anonymous, sent to me via PM. And this is an interesting one I didn't actually know the answer to. Hello. While browsing through paints in a hobby store, I noticed that Model Master has a lot of paints with FS numbers. Would a FS paint be visually different to a regular colour paint like Model Master Gloss FS 17875 versus Tamiya Mr. Hobby Aquarius Gloss White, Model Master Neutral Grey FS 36270 versus Tamiya Mr. Hobby Neutral Grey? They are both versions of military US sounding paints. They in theory are pretty much the same colour visually, but on the Model Master website they claim that their paints are matched according to US government federal standards, which is what the FS stands for. The long-winded number would be the military code for those colours, and their company also claims that their colours are absolutely authentic to paint chips from the US military of old military vehicles and new military vehicles. I'll also conclude that Tamiya and Mr. Hobby has also done very strict, very strong research in military vehicles, paint chips and whatnot with war museums and archives, and are also a very accurate colour. In my humble opinion, I still think Tamiya is a better paint in its manner of application, strength and whatnot, but the difference between the two would be so minor in shade. Not a lot of people would be able to tell that if you painted a kit in Tamiya Neutral Grey or Model Master Neutral Grey, unless they're a very serious rivet counter. So I just think this is a very elaborate marketing ploy of actually using the military code standard, and people that make military kits probably get very excited and are able to quote it and whatnot. But yeah, it's something I've learnt today, so that's pretty cool. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, I will try to keep this series as a monthly or bi-monthly process. I think it's fairly helpful to you guys out there, or at least popular by feedback. Stay tuned to this channel for further tutorials, kit reviews and whatnot. I've got a few product reviews and tutorials going to be coming out of the bin very shortly, with vlog. I'm due for a vlog, and also the airbrushing straight painting lines and update for my Gunpla Builders World Cup entry. A reminder, I've got a Facebook page now that I've been putting the link at the bottom of the description of all of my new videos. The importance of that, besides a second avenue of contact with everybody else when I finish a model, or I do work in progress, or something that doesn't really match up to be important enough to be in video form, goes up there, so you just get a little extra content from the mokanaman. So instead of exclusively posting something on the odd forum that I might do a group build or whatnot, corresponding image will also be uploaded there, so you can check out more of my work. And in the gallery is my near full complete portfolio of work. I've lost a few model kits and photos in archives and whatnot, but when they get found, they'll be added, and eventually one day it will be a full portfolio of my work. Catch you guys next time, and until next time, love to see your questions again for the next installment of this video. Catch you guys later.